Good afternoon, everybody, and welcome back to Behind the Veil, a show that provides insight into the world of weddings. I'm your host, Keith Willard. Welcome back. Today's show is going to be a fairly wide-ranging show, and I feel like almost everybody is going to be able to pull a little bit of information from this because we're going to be talking about blogging. We're going to talk about podcasting. We're going to talk about, is it really something that you should be doing? Is it the best use of your time? And today's guest is considered an expert in all of these things. She is a sought-after speaker about productivity, about blogging, about podcasting, and how to catch the elusive follower. But I will introduce her shortly because first I'm going to introduce Marcy Gutenberg with an affair to remember by Marcy. Hi, Marcy.
Hi, Keith.
Here we go. Again, it's one of those things that we're all complaining about the fact that we've got so much business where 3 months ago we were complaining about no business, but
0 to 200.
0 to 200. So how do you be productive, and how do you continue to do the marketing and the public relations and all the things that are supposed to be happening that we got so used to during COVID? Right? I mean, this show was born out of that. And talking about this show, hello, Brooke Logan Stoner.
Hello, Brooke Logan Stoner. Oh, God. Look who was on time today.
I know. Look who was 30 seconds before we started. Good for you.
On time. Hello, Marcy. How are you? Hi, Keith.
Hi, Brooke.
Hi. Well, let me introduce our guest today. Her name is Angela Proffitt. She is an award-winning 8-figure entrepreneur and CEO of GSD Creative. She is no stranger to the spotlight and is currently the host of the Business Unveiled podcast. Nice title. As a consultant with several books and an in-demand speaker, Angela has appeared on ABC, CMT, TLC, E, as well as other national networks. She has a degree in psychology, God bless you, and proven expertise in productivity strategies that scale your business. Her work has been featured in publications such as Inc., Success, US Weekly, and People Magazine. Good for you, People Magazine. Oh my God.
Hi, Angela.
Subscriptions.
Hi, Keith. Hi, Marcy. Hi, Brooke. Thanks so much for having me today. I'm super excited to be here.
Oh my God, so excited to have you on here. I mean, I've read through your bio a couple of times, and of course, it's always funny when I'm reading it when we're live, something always strikes, and I'm like, People Magazine. How the hell did you get into People Magazine? I mean, oh my God, what a win.
I've had a couple clients that have great publicists.
Yeah.
And they, had an event, or it always really is around events and productivity and how do you pull off these things and being productive. And so it really is about those great relationships and having those great clients.
Well, and we've had Megan Ely on, and we've had a couple of other, PR industry, and they always talk about the fact that when you have a client that is in People Magazine, there are two things that happen. Either you have a non-disclosure agreement, or you have to get it back to them so quickly with professional photos and perfect within like 24 hours that it's almost impossible to do both. So when I saw the People Magazine thing, I just was like, oh, I'm impressed.
I mean, I had to straighten my hair and be on time today, so she's somebody.
It is true. And I will say, like, most of these arrangements are done way in advance. And so we know that it's going to happen. That's the first thing. And so we actually take the time and put the time on the calendar and make sure that we have that interview set up. And typically 100% of the time I end up doing the interview for the client. And then we work with the media team to get 5 to 10 images edited and touched up and to the magazine within 24 hours. So that person is correct.
Oh,
it's a fast turnaround time.
Holy moly. I mean, and it's so funny because when you talk to people and they're like, oh my God, I'm so excited you were in this, they don't realize the amount of work and effort and time that it takes behind the scenes in order to make this happen in a fairly short period of time. It almost makes it so difficult for small businesses like ourselves that are like 1-person, 2-person, shows to really be involved in those kind of things. I mean, I have to say one of the things that COVID really did for all of us that are on the show is that it gave us time to do this and get used to the rhythm because, there is a rhythm to it.
Still can't be on time.
Yeah.
I can start at noon and it's still late.
Oh my goodness. It's because of her makeup. She has to be perfect.
That's the fastest thing is the hair. I can bust a mug in 12 minutes. I'm good.
It also gave us time to kind of go back and kind of refresh our productivity skills and, what can we do to kind of tighten things up and,
Look at how she did. See how she did that? See that full circle there?
Pull it back around.
She pulled it right back in. I am so perfect. Okay, so
Please fix my placement, please.
I know, right? For first question though, is your last name really your last name?
It really is my last name. I got married
good.
I got married way too young, and that was my husband at the time's last name. And professionally, now, everyone knew me as Angela Proffitt. Now we are no longer married. That ship has sailed. He's a great guy, but he really wanted to dedicate his life to the military and to the Army, and we need those people. But I didn't grow up in a military family. I grew up with a mom and a dad at home, and that's kind of what I expected. He wasn't at war when we were married, and again, this was a long time ago.
Right.
But it's like I really found myself when he was gone that I was going to be an entrepreneur. I was going to be super independent. I was never going to be that wife that followed him around the world. And when he came home after 4 tours, I'm like, that's awesome that you want to dedicate your life to that, but that's not what I want to do. So it was probably the easiest, most emotionless divorce where this isn't going to work. But I kept the last name, and it really suited me to work into entrepreneurship.
I'm just saying, hello, Tina Turner. Hello, Tina Turner. Yeah, you can keep everything, but I want to keep my name. Oh, I love it. Oh my goodness. I mean,
What's a last name?
It's a perfect last name.
It's a perfect last name, especially with what you do. I mean, oh my God, you're in the world of business and productivity and making the most out of your business relationships. I mean, how perfect. I mean, when I saw your last name, I just really, hence the profit. I just thought, oh, this is too good.
I thought I had a good last name. Shoot.
I know, right? And it's actually Brooke Loganstoner. Anyway, but okay, so I went to your website and I kind of followed some of the things that you're doing. And I am, first of all, blown away by the number of followers that you have that are so freaking dedicated to you, that are like on you. Like they are, butter and jelly. What is it? Peanut butter and jelly. And I know I had to think about that. So peanut butter and jelly.
She has her own little army.
You really do. So how did you get into this business? I mean, did you always think that you were going to be where you are today?
No, especially after the pandemic.
Right.
It's kind of like after the first 10 years that I had my business, but I was also working in healthcare. So I had a real job, as my parents would call it. And once I was like living a double life, and then I had this opportunity to go to a private island and plan a wedding with Kelly Pickler, who was on American Idol, over a decade ago.
Hold on, let me pick up that name.
I know her. I watched that.
I got to pick up that name. Hold on,
That's
really
great.
quickly. That was awesome. Oh my God,
She's
love it.
awesome. Like her and Kyle, her husband, they're amazing people. Like I'm still friends with them like to this day. Her birthday was yesterday, actually. And so it's like, we some of our clients that we just really love, like we have these lifelong friendships, right? And we do all the parties and all the things once you really build the trust of your client. And so when I was on this private island, I didn't know private islands existed. First off, I'm like, damn, I can do this. Like, this is all about customer service and communication.
Yeah.
And I'm glad that I went to school to be a psychologist. It didn't work out in mental health. That lasted about a year. And then I did some other things and therapy positions, but it really taught me about people and like understanding people. And so I learned when I was about 30 that I just needed to listen to the audience. What are the needs? Now, what you want to do and what the audience wants to do and what they're going to do is two different things. And so I really had to learn to surrender a little bit and do what people were asking me to do. And so when you open your ears and you listen to your audience, things start taking off differently. And so in 2010, I'm from Nashville. Our town flooded. We had 8 displaced weddings. It was a effing nightmare. But
Oh
for us, like something really happened where we had vendors and creative partners who really lost everything. All their shit floated away, including their cars and their files. And no one was really worried about my clients because all of their files were in the cloud. And so that's when in 2010 for us, and especially for Nashville, we really pulled together as a community and we had to redo all these events and weddings. But from a business perspective, they say work on your business, not in your business all the time. And people started to ask, can you teach me how to put stuff in that cloud thing. And I just like all my businesses, I start doing shit for free, for fun, because I do love to help others. That's where I get up and my passion, I'm driven to help people every day.
Right.
And that is really where all of these different businesses and this entrepreneurship journey has come from, is listen to what people are asking from you. And a lot of these things, like, we're naturally good at some of this stuff, or we've learned it in a previous life. Like, I learned all this previously from working in healthcare and implementing EMR, which is electronic medical records when you go to the doctor. So that's really where all this has come from, is just, listen to our audience and then build a community around those people and give them what they want. You're in healthcare, and I used to be in healthcare too. I used to work for the Texas State Mental Health and Mental Retardation. You don't use mental retardation anymore, but this is obviously a few years back. Yeah. And I totally get it. It was total burnout city, seriously, because it takes a lot of personal effort and emotion to be able to handle that kind of world. You decided that you're going to go into the world of events? Like, well, my family So, let me back up. My family had a venue for 35 years. So my uncle had a venue on the Mississippi Gulf Coast. And so I grew up around events. Like, he started out as a florist, and then he built a catering kitchen, and then built a venue. And it started with this little shop of flowers, and then it just turned into a one-stop shop.
Right.
And so over the years, I'd always been around it. And when I moved back to Nashville from going away to college and doing my clinical rotations, my parents' friends' kids started to get married. I was raised Catholic, and they knew me and my sister knew how to decorate, which Pinterest, social media, none of that shit existed back then. Okay. So this was all just like, we literally cut out magazine pictures. That's how long ago that was. So me and my sister,
I remember
right?
It. Yeah.
We just started
afternooning.
The good old days.
Oh my God.
We started just helping at our local church. Literally for free, for fun, for about 2 years.
Yeah.
And then people started to ask us, like, from the wedding party and vendors, like, hey, I'm not Catholic. I'm getting married here. Like, can you come here? Do you have to be Catholic to work with you? And I'm like, no. Like, I don't care. If you're in love and you're married, like, and you want to get married, like, I'll help dogs get married,
Oh
like,
my God. I would love that question. Do I have to be gay to have you married, work on our wedding? I'm like, no.
Your dollar bills? Just
I'm happy to help any sexuality.
Money, coins, none of that.
The thing is,
I love it.
We honestly treat everyone the same. And it's crazy because we actually did one of the first gay weddings in Nashville back in, I think, 2012. It was not legal in Nashville, but we would go to Boston or California. We started to travel a lot and then come back to Nashville and have like these big, amazing parties. And so whenever the law was passed, that was great. And my mother's like, well, how is this going to affect your business? I'm like, I'm not going to travel as much. Wow. Like, I'll stay in town. But it's like, I don't care. Like, and that's one of the things that Pinterest and the internet, there's pros and cons to everything. But one thing that has kind of taken the fun out of all of the planning and the design is like, it's become a production. It's become this huge ass show behind the scenes of who can do better for what. And so even before the pandemic, around 2015, and I really started to look at my time and productivity and what do I want to do and what impact can I make on the world? And it wasn't doing 250 plus events a year, one-offs. And we do have a few repeat clients and we love them.
I was about to say, but 250, oh my God.
I mean, it was a lot. And so I really wanted to scale back and maybe do around 30 just full service. And we were actually more profitable. It's crazy, like doing way less and doing full service.
It's true.
But it's like, we want to work with the people who are best friends, who are in love, who are actually doing it for the right reasons, not because they're 35 and they're running out of time and they have to settle.
Tick, tick, tick.
It's not fun.
It's not fun. Yeah. Sorry, Brooke. We're not talking about anybody on the show.
No offense taken.
So, but I love that.
It's fun.
Right. Okay. So I love the idea because now I understand where you're coming in with the productivity piece of it, because, you were doing 250, you're doing lots and lots and lots of events, but was your profitability really, going to be representative of the amount of events that you did? So you took a second look at it and you said, wait, let's pull this back. right?
And it wasn't me. It was I hired an accountant from from a meeting. I was at a local like wedding industry meeting, and I think at the time there were like 45 members, and now there's like 350 members. And he was talking about how important it was to know your numbers. Well, I wasn't really, my parents were not entrepreneurial. My dad worked at the same company for over 30 years, and my mom was a stay-at-home mom until my brother graduated college, and then she got a fun part-time job. But her job was being a mom. All I knew growing up is that's not the job I wanted. I did not want to be a stay-at-home mom. I knew that I wanted to have a career and help people and make a difference.
Right.
And so I didn't know that you needed to look at your overhead. I didn't even know what that meant. I didn't know what gross profit meant. I didn't know what net profit. I didn't know what any of those terms meant. And he's like, well, let's set up a P&L. I'm like, okay, play and love. Like, what the hell does that mean? And so I'm like, I don't know.
Okay, that's it. On a Sunday.
And for those who are listening who do not know what a P&L is, it's
profit and loss. Yeah, profit and loss. But like still,
the most important thing.
It really is. And it's interesting because I had the reverse. My mother is a total career woman. She got her engineering degree, went back because she wanted to do something else, got her law degree, and then worked her way up through multiple business, and then became general counsel for Great American Insurance. So she has been on me about looking at my numbers and making sure that I am making enough per hour, quote unquote, to really, go against the number of events that I'm doing. Yeah, to keep
I love your mother.
But I totally get it. I totally get it. But I think it's sometimes a difficult thing for new businesses to really pay attention because they're like, I just need to get my name out there. I just need to get, I just need to get the next job because how am I going to put food on my table? And they can't really see the long term. And so, that's always a squishy situation.
Well, and it's really difficult too for a passion-led business or an accidental business where, and what I see in the wedding industry the most, and it really does break my heart because I was that girl for 10 years. And if I didn't have a mentor or some of the consultants I worked with or some of the groups that I'm still part of today, if I didn't have those, I would probably be dead right now, like from a stroke or a heart attack, because I'd never slept. I didn't take care of myself. It was just like work. Now, again, I loved what I was doing, but it was unhealthy. And so, but when you're doing what you love, but then you have to make money and pay people and pay bills, it starts to become not fun anymore. And so, and it's a really, really scary thing which I just kind of fell into it. I'm like, okay, I need an accountant. I should stop going to the library to have this man who's free do my taxes every year. Literally went to the public library because that's what my mama said to do. And that is not what I should have done. So it's just like assessing everything. And then I didn't know what I didn't know. And then when I looked at the numbers and he literally went through all of our budgets for all of our clients, it was like someone took a fork and, it's like turning in my heart. And it's like, gosh, not only did I didn't make any money. I was paying people to do their events because I wasn't looking at my overhead. I wasn't adding up how much I was paying people. I mean, I was hemorrhaging money when you're managing millions and millions of dollars for all these people and you're so busy doing it for others. But anyone that's listening, I would encourage you to like stop and it is scary, but take the time. But here's how you know how to charge is I don't care what Susie and Jane and Joe are doing down the road. I mean, you do have to look at what's industry standard. In my book, there is no standard. We don't do standard things. And you have to know how much do you need to live and how much do you need to run your business and pay your people and then communicate your business model out to the people that you're serving. And when other people say, well, I shop 3 and 4 people, my response is, that's great. But we run a business and we have insurance and it's a legit business. I don't do this for fun. And what I see in this industry, so many people do the passion because they're unhappy in their personal life. And so they find happiness and they don't care anything about making money.
Here comes the psychologist. All right. Here we go.
Or they're working a full-time job.
They're working a full-time job. Yeah.
Stop working your full-time job. You can actually do this for a living, like have your passion there and make money and stop killing yourself. Giving your time and your effort and your passion to someone else who isn't going to appreciate it like your clients are because you're taking care of them. You're you are in control of the most important day to someone's life. And so it really deserves the full attention instead of trying to split it. And I can say these things because I was that girl, you know?
And I love that because you're not shying away from that at all. You're saying, look, I made every mistake in the book. And I want to go back to the librarian accountant / moment, because I think that's I think that's an important thing to get across, is that you have to remove your heart when it comes to talking about numbers, when it comes to your business. That was a really difficult thing for me to do because I love what I do. I love my business. I love my clients. I love everything about it. But then to hear somebody to talk about cold numbers was rough. Like,
especially when she's your mother.
No, well, and it wasn't my mother, but no, my mother was much nicer about it. Well, actually, no, she wasn't. But no, but it takes a moment that you got to go, okay, I got to put my shield on. I got to put on my armor, and I got to listen with open ears to what they're about to say to me and take everything in and look at it from a third person point of view. I mean, is that what you...
Passion be your drive first and foremost, but you have to have that perfect balance, because passion's great. And that's right. In this industry, that's a good put your foot on the gas. However, again, with all
dollar bills
pieces in play, you've got to pay employees, you've got to run your business. We have monthly expenses, whether we're booked or not. We still have to pay for storage, you warehouse, all these things, right?
Yes,
passion, put your foot on the gas, but also you need to make sure check and balances, and you have to find that perfect balance to match your passion, but be just as smart. If you can't do it yourself, hire somebody to make sure that your budget and your numbers are correct.
And that's what you did. You hired
that's how
somebody.
You fail in this business if you don't do that.
Right, but that's what you did. You hired an accountant to come in and look at everything. So here you are. You finally hire an accountant, right? So, and you have been doing events, and you said you went from 250 events to 30 events. I want to talk about that transition period between the 250 to the 30, because I'm going through that transition right now, literally as we speak. I have increased my price point. I've changed what my client base is going to be. I'm focusing on the full service client, but I still have all these other clients that are in there too. And it takes some time to, I don't want to say weed them out, because I don't consider them weeding them out, but it does take, I feel like I'm going to have to work extra hard now for the next 6 months to then not work as hard after that point.
And that's the part that really effing sucks.
Yes, it fucking sucks. Yes.
Yeah, it fucking sucks. Like, let's be honest. It sucks. So it's like, and it took us about the 27 months to be exact, because I counted
27 months. Yeah.
27 months, because people book us 15 to 18 months in advance. And if we had already booked off of an old contract, which, by the way, that's the other thing that I completely tore apart. Well, not me, let's be honest. It was the accountant and a business manager, a consultant that I had hired that I meet with 4 times a year, who's still the same guy to this day. And it's like we split apart our services so that we had planning, which is you can account for every single hour of how things are planned. And we came up with templates. We came up with a process that lived in the cloud. It's Google Drive templates. And everyone had the same template. It's just all the information inside of the templates was completely custom to them. But we tracked our time over that time, so we knew exactly how long. Usually, it don't matter if you have 5 people or 5,000 people. We still have to do all the same steps typically. Yep. And so we really refined how long it took to plan something. And then the design piece, when Pinterest was born, and it used to be a luxury to have a planner, and then it was a luxury to have a designer. Now people realize you freaking need both. And that's when we split our services apart. We started tracking all of our time and doing things hourly, selling time and time blocks. And then we would do the design, which is a percentage of the overall. I don't do a percentage of the overall budget. We've tried every package, every type of business model you could think of. Yeah. There were times we were not profitable, so we had to move away from that. And so there's a percentage of just the design, because you can't put an hourly time. You can't put time on creativity, period. So we really split those things apart. And then The other thing that we started to do, we changed a lot of stuff online on our website. So every single thing, and it is a scary thing, but here's the thing. Instead of like weeding people out, you pre-qualify people online through your videos by saying, we are a full service agency. We do planning, we design, we take it beginning to end. Now, if you've already started to plan and you're halfway through, that's awesome. Good luck to you, but we're not the company for you because we just do beginning to end. And I had to say that. I sound like a broken record, but consistency, clarity over cute always wins. And so that weeded the people out. Now you're still going to have people say, well, you did my sister's wedding and you did this and you are going to find yourself making those exceptions. But at the end of the day, you have to make sure you're profitable. And then it took like 2.5 years for us to finish all those old contracts. Yep. And again, like, we still love our clients, but it also made me sick to my stomach, and I'd like vomit in my mouth thinking like how much money I was losing because I wasn't clear in my contract.
Yeah. And I think that's and that I like the fact that you said it's an exception, and it is an exception to take on those clients that you did, their relatives. I mean, we have a family that we've done 4 weddings and a vow renewal for the same family. And so luckily, I've increased my pricing with them time over time, and they've been very happy. They've been lovely about it because they've been watching me on Instagram and social media and that stuff. So they know
the first time, honey.
Right. So they know that I've grown as an individual, as a business, and so they get it. And so it makes me got it. I mean, I got lucky because not everybody's like that. You know, there's families out there that are like, well, but you charged my friend this, and or my sister this, and I was really
5 years ago.
Yeah, 5 years ago, and I was really hoping that you would do the same. You talk about the Google templates, and so I'm assuming that is a big piece of your productivity. Yeah.
Absolutely. And back then, back then, well, and I want to say one more thing to your point, Keith, like the goal as a planning company is to have life cycle clients. So our last few years, and again, this was a consultant that taught me this. He said, you don't need to work with 250 different people. You need to have a perfect client. So we know that our perfect client, they're an entrepreneur, they own businesses. Now the relationship starts with the wedding, but then they own businesses. Businesses plan conferences, they plan events, they plan open houses, they plan holiday parties, they plan birthday parties, they plan all these things. And so the intent in the last 2 years before the pandemic was to only have 10 life cycle clients because we had figured out our numbers. And like you said, they already trust you. They know you. They love you. They like you. They know your work and they know you're worth it. And so that was really the goal that any company would want to have, is that repeat business. And it's great to start with a wedding because it's one of the most vulnerable, emotional events that will ever happen. And if you can spearhead that and make this great experience, they're kind of a client for life if you allow them to be. So to close that out. What was the question?
Productivity. Productivity. And you talked about templates being in the cloud. Did that help a lot with the productivity? Did having those templates kind of pre-done and set and ready help with?
Yes. And when we started to do this, softwares did not exist. Like now, there are tech companies that are realizing, the wedding industry is $1 billion industry. We should really pay attention to this. And our industry is so behind on technology. But luckily, because I was exposed to EMR and being paperless so early on in my career, I only knew that it made sense to do it that way. And I also knew that if I was going to grow a team or outsource, that I had to have a process set up in the cloud that I could share files with people. And so, we were a beta user of Dropbox back 2009 or 8. Whenever, way before it came out.
Dropbox.
We'll never pay for Dropbox space, but it's like getting people on board with it and how to use Dropbox and then how to use Google Drive. We still, to this day, our entire business, all of my businesses are completely run off of Dropbox and Google Drive. And then we have about 30 plus softwares that do various things and various plugins because I'm really anal about tracking everything that we do. But the foundation of being productive is having the right tools and the right processes. I was talking to somebody yesterday and they're like, Angela, the reason you're like GSD, get shit done, and you're so happy about it is like you love what you do. And when you love what you do, it's easy to be more productive and it's easy to get shit done. But if you hate what you're doing or you don't love your job, you really annoy me. And I'm like, well,
and they're probably not going to be that amazing.
Yes. And
whether
by the
you
way,
have great work ethic or not, at some point, that's going to be like,
And by the way, on the ticker tape below, you'll see that there is a link to www.gsdsecrets.com for your free mini course on productivity. So, so go to that because you're going to learn a lot about productivity and about how she got to this place in her life. So, okay, you put these templates into the cloud. I'm really interested to hear like how you went from a one-person business to having, because you said companies, you said businesses, plural. So, I mean, you had to start somewhere, right?
Yeah.
You had to start as a one person kind of thing, right? Or were you always multiple people?
What was the first?
No, I mean, it really,
yeah,
it really was. It was me. And then my first person was my sister. And then from there, I started, and this is back how I started, and I'm not saying do this, but I had a bunch of friends that worked at the hospital, and I needed hands like on the weekends. Yeah. So I would plan everything and, stay up 3 nights in a row and get everything done, and then have a bunch of my friends show up and like give them an iPad and like, they would run things. I mean, we worked up to where I would train directors and they would go and direct, and we would have 5+ weddings in a weekend going on. And my favorite thing is when they would go meet with other planners, they're like, oh, well, don't hire that short blonde girl. I mean, they do so many things. And they potential clients would come to me and say, well, how many events do you do in a weekend? Because so-and-so said this. I said, first off, if I couldn't take you on as a client and give you great customer service, I would not be sitting here working with you. And how many events we do in a weekend is no one's business. We run a business. Every person has a lead director, and we staff our events based on what your event, everyone is different. So I never put energy and time. I never answered the questions. None of their fucking business, to be honest.
Good for you.
So it's like, that's,
Good for you.
That's one thing. But the other thing is, so I'll never forget, I built this massive house with design in mind, where it's like I designed it out to where we could steam linens, and it was like a full design production studio, and I was going to live there. And I had a big Christmas party, and I invited all my people, and I was so excited. And then at the end of the night, they all kind of ganged up against me and then sent me these really mean emails like, you're making all this money and you have this big beautiful house and you need to pay us more. And I'm like, are you kidding me? I pay more per hour than any person in this town, and I know it because I talked to I made friends with all these people, right? And so I'm like, so then I went to my business manager and he's like, you got to get rid of everybody. These are your friends. They're not growing with you. And so he's like, you're going to start an intern program. That's what you need to do. I'm like, what? So I went to a local college and I started an intern program with his help. And then those people respected me, my business, my process so much more. I never booked those people, 12 of them to be exact, on any other events. I mean, I'm not friends with them anymore. Pretty much ruined our friendship, which kind of sucks. But it's like, we still to this day have our internship program, but we pre-qualify even interns based on psychology. So there's a lot of different psychology tools out there. And we've been doing this way before corporations have been making it cool to use psychology tools to hire people. But I worked in mental health. And so I had access to all of these different tools. So we would do a psychology methodology. And there's 4 color types and personalities. And so like the golds are super type A. They're loyal. They'll never start their own business. They're not risk takers, but they're amazing at running a business that already has a process in place. And you can always count on those people. Then you've got people that are very sensitive. They are driven by emotions. They're driven by people's energy, and they will do whatever it takes to make people happy. Then you've got analytical people that love to research and they love the numbers. These are like your accountants, your attorneys. These are my operation directors who are like, okay, you have this many things. How you want what? How many chandeliers? I'm like, well, what can this tent bear? Like the weight, and how much power do we need? So what kind of generators do we need? So they're asking me all these operational things. And then you've got people like us who are the risk takers. We're the crazy ass people that are out there not even thinking about the numbers and thinking about the research and thinking about stuff. It's just like, we have this great idea and the client's going to love it. Yep. And we're going to have people hanging upside down and pouring champagne, spitting out their mouths. When guess what? We're like creating this event,
I was going to ask what color you thought I was.
That's funny. That's awesome.
Experience. So it's like understanding. And that's where I really started when I started to travel all over the world doing this, I started to realize that my psychology really set me apart from what everybody else was doing. Mm-hmm. And that's when I got into consulting and like helping, some of these great brands that we work with, because you gotta have the right people. You can have software, you can have technology, you can have AI, you can have automation, you can have all those tools. Yep. But at the heart of it and the core of it, you can't tell me, even in 50 years from now, people are going to be the heart of your business. And if you don't have the right people in the right hands who have the right mindset and the way that their brain is wired, you can't change that. So hire the right people. And I still, again, we don't hire anybody that doesn't go through an internship program. Most of the people, they are in school, but we have people that come and shadow and volunteer because they just want to learn. And it's kind of like dating. It's like, well, let's see if you're really proactive, because you can teach a lot, but you can't
teach hard work.
Brain.
You can't teach hard work.
No.
I agree 100% about that. I am
so interns.
Huge that. Yeah, interns are the best. Yeah.
Yep. That's how we really grew all of our companies.
That's amazing, because I actually have my first intern this time. Hello, Jenna. I'm sure she's listening.
Checking boxes, baby. I'm yes, Keith,
right today. Exactly. So, but I'm in that beginning stage. I started my company a little later in life. I mean, I worked my way up through hotels and ended up as director of catering at Ritz-Carlton, and then made the jump into the business world. But I wasn't ready to be a business owner until then. And I think that's a hard place, a hard thing to acknowledge to yourself, to say, you know what, there's a time and place for everything. And I was not ready to do this on my own before.
And God sent you an angel.
Well, but but I think knowing yourself is a big part of how to become successful in this business. You got to know your weaknesses. And I love, because you talked about the fact that, you're the creative type. You're not the numbers person. I mean, you obviously went to the public library for the numbers person.
If I said
it was free.
So that's one of the three.
Right, it was free. So here you are. Now you're growing your business, and you went from obviously pre-Dropbox, pre-social media, pre all of this, and there's a method to my madness here. You're getting into the social media world, and now you're having to start about blogs and podcasts and all of these things. I mean, do you feel like everybody has something to say, that everybody should be doing a podcast or a blog? Or do you feel like, you need to have a voice first?
Well, there's two different things. And how I even got started with it is I had a younger brother when Facebook came out, and he's like, hey, you're too old. You can't, you're graduating from college. You can't have this thing that I have. And now he owns a business, and I help with his business. So it's kind of funny. But he was always like, it's the day Facebook was like, you can, if you have a business, you need to have a business. He was always like, you need to get this, and you need to get, there's this thing called Twitter. And he was always like encouraging me. And so I always was on the forefront of it, because I'm a risk taker. I try new things. Right. But many years ago, Dave Ramsey, who's from Nashville, who was known at the time as like the money guy, get out of debt. And so I had gone to his office to do a podcast about like, don't go into debt for your wedding kind of thing. And there was a guy there that was just fascinated by some of my fucked up stories. And so, and he kept asking me all these questions. And I'm like, why is this dude asking me this stuff? Well, a year later, he contacted me. He was a wedding DJ on the side. And then he left Dave Ramsey with Dave's blessing to start his own agency to help people with branding. Now, this was way before we really knew what brands were. Right. And he's like, you have these stories that I've worked hundreds of weddings. And the way that you talk about it from a psychology angle he's like, I really want to take you and do like this wash, rinse, repeat thing. And he's like, you're great with video. And at the time, the guy that I was dating had a production company, so it's kind of like a perfect little makeup. He's like, they could film 52 videos in a couple days where you're just telling a story. There was a formula to follow. Who are you talking to? What's the story? And one CTA, one call to action. And so he's like, then we're going to take that. We're going to make that audio into a podcast. And then at the end of the year, we're going to give it to our editor and she's going to make it into a tips book. And then we're going to put all those tips on your blog. And then we're going to tease them out on social media, which is only a teaser to get people off of social media back to your website, onto your blog, so you can get their information, right?
The trickery of it all. I love it.
Yeah.
There's a whole strategy behind this. So I learned this in 2013 when sales funnels first started to really enter the market in the industry. Yep. And so I started going to conferences as a participant, not in our industry, but on sales, on funnels, on online courses, affiliate marketing. But he's the one that really took me and taught me this whole thing. And so we worked together for 3 years. It was a 3-year contract. It was a 3-year commitment, which now I get it because we kind of do that with our branding clients now. It's a journey and this shit don't happen overnight. Nothing's easy. No. And you've got to set yourself up for success. But what was going on with me was I was very confusing to Google, to the consumer, because I was in multiple places. You know, I had this event, I had this going on. So really separating the company brands from my personal brand was really important. And then also too, you know, some of the entrepreneur groups I'm in, they teach you like build your business so you can scale it and sell it. And I started to really think about that. I'm like, shit, I ain't got nothing to sell without me, mama driving everything over here. Yep. Like with the company culture and the psychology, I'm like, I got to back myself out of this because I'm building a legacy that, I could maybe pass down to my nieces, but no one's going to buy this from me. Mm. So that's when I started to hire consultants to help me put a framework around online courses. How can I basically sell my knowledge and capitalize off of that, but then also sell my process? And so that's where some of the consulting came in and some of the online classes came in, which, it's like make money while you sleep, passive income. Yeah, it takes about 2 or so years and $200,000 later of investing in this stuff. It doesn't happen easily, but when you stick with something and you're clear to your audience, you know, the people do come and people go through it. You have to let your defense, you can't be defensive. It's like, you got to learn how to really have thick skin and take feedback from people and then go take a product and make it better. Right. And so that's one thing where, you know, with the wedding industry, especially, is I try to really tell people, like, I know you think it's about you. Like, without this one person, everything's going to fall apart, which in some cases is very true. But really think differently, that can you go on vacation for a month and can your team run what you've built? And if the answer is no, you have a freaking job. You don't have a company. You don't have a business. Right. And so it started, the whole mindset around that, I started thinking very differently. So after the 3-year contract, he started working with Tony Robbins and Oprah, because Oprah got her own network. And I mean, I was this tiny little fish in his pond. And I said, amazing, you know what, Kevin? I'm like, we got it. We got it from here.
I know. I was about to say. Or her. I was about to say, hello.
He really, he wanted to take me. He's like, you need to be known as the Oprah of weddings. And I said, but that's not what I want. I don't want to be known as the Oprah of weddings. I want to be known for productivity, because when you're productive, doing what you love, you can actually be present in your everyday life. And that's the goal, is to make sure you have the right people, use the technology, have all the tools, do your passion, make money, live your life to the fullest, but be present with whatever you're doing with friends and family. Because that's something I never learned how to do until my dad was dead. He died of cancer. And it's like, I woke up and it took that for me to think like, shit, I need to quit spinning my wheels, because you never know when your time's going to come. And how can I leave that legacy and that impact? And so, I mean, we're still friends to this day, but I'm like, I think I got it from here. And then from that, we started helping. I mean, it was really my friends, like helping them see that mindset and understand. And then, you know, started the digital marketing company after that.
So what I got out of this is that you got your last name from one ex and you got the video from a second ex.
Yep.
I'm like, way to use those relationships.
Absolutely.
Wow.
I feel so much better
Awesome.
about myself and my life choices now.
I love that.
So
That's awesome. I mean, you're like, and I love the fact that you're still friends with everybody, because it seems like everybody that you were with became successful in their own right, in their own life. So obviously you're attracted to a type, maybe somebody that's self-motivated. But I find this fascinating, and I like the idea that when we talk about getting online and we talk about followers and we talk about blogging and podcasts, that you're like, have a point of view. Be consistent with your point of view, know who you are and what kind of messaging you want to get out there, and stick to it. Don't try to change for the followers. The followers will find you if you stay consistent, because there's going to be somebody out there that everybody wants. There's somebody out there for everybody to listen to.
Yes. And to answer your question, so should everybody have a podcast? No, absolutely not. And the reason I say that is because having a podcast, well, it's a full-time job.
God, yes.
A podcast should be treated as a separate business, which ours is set up. It's a whole separate business. We have a team dedicated to it. We used to have sponsors strategically. Before the pandemic, we decided that we were going to shift gears and only really talk about our internal products that took years to build. Right. But you have to have a revenue strategy, because to produce a podcast every single week, at least for us, it cost me anywhere from $3,000 to $5,000 to doing everything we're doing. And that's just the reality of it. So, it's a great lead magnet to get content out there, but there's a whole strategy. So no, if you can't dedicate the time and the revenue and the money, and you don't have the overhead, you shouldn't just do a podcast just to pop up a few episodes here and there. It takes consistency to build an audience. You have to have an audience to make money. So that's that. A blog, yes. If you own a business, even if you're a couple listening, you should have a website and a blog where you have information on there regularly and teasing things out on social media and bringing people back to your blog. It's one of the number one underrated things. People are like, oh, I used to be a blogger and make money from that. Well, they're looking at it all. It's okay. You don't know what you don't know, sweetheart. But it's like,
aren't you
it's
special?
SEO. It's free. Yeah. I mean, it's free SEO.
Yeah.
So the hashtags being keywords, if people are finding you through hashtags, and you plot out your customer journey and how you want a customer to get to know you, to nurture them before you convert them to actually spend money with you, there's a whole psychology behind all of that. And what I've learned is a lot of businesses, they don't have that. They've never mapped their customer journey or taken a step back and said, like, what do I really want? Because those of us in this industry, until I had my accountant say, how many do you want to do a year? How much money do you need to make? And what is your overhead? I just said yes to every damn thing that came my way because I didn't know any better. So you really have to take a step back. And the biggest missing piece from passion and creative companies is a strategy. And then the owner or the producer or the creator, you got to keep them focused. And that's the hardest thing. But the thing is, I'm so grateful for my team because they keep my ass in check. And I'll be like, what about this? What about this? But I've learned over time because I now know my numbers and I know how expensive it can be to go put an idea out there before it's tested, before we've asked our audience. We don't do that anymore because now I get the numbers back and I'm like, oh, well, that was a $45,000 waste of money. Shit. How are we going to make that back? And it sucks to know sometimes, but it keeps your focus and your ideas in check.
Yeah. Well, we do this every week. So I produce this every week and it's on a limited basis, obviously. And by the way, Brooke just dropped off because we have a massive storm happening here in the area. And luckily I've got everything on battery backup. So that's the only reason that I'm still up and running at the moment. But we do this small show. We did it because of COVID. We started it because of COVID as a way to get to meet people like you, to be able to answer questions in our local thing. It doesn't cost us very much. If anything, it's a little bit of the time, but the programming stays the same and what have you. But I've never wanted it to be more than just what we're doing right now. just a conversation. I mean, it was never meant to, bring more business in or to be, branding of any sort. It was really always just more about the person that we're talking to than us. It was because your story is fascinating. And let me just put it out to our the people that are watching as well. The numbers that you're putting out there, you say 45,000, 250,000, you've put out some fairly big numbers for a business that's just starting. Those are big numbers. Those are dream numbers that they think
about. I've been at this for 20 years, y'all.
So, yeah, exactly. So I just wanted to preface that yes. We all started from someplace, and yes, those numbers sound really big right now, but that doesn't mean that it always will be. It doesn't mean it always will sound big, right? There's a point and there's a start to everything. And so I do like the fact that you said not everybody needs to be a podcaster.
But to your point, it's like knowing your goals before you start a podcast. So, my goal starting out of the gate for the person that I was hiring in my mind, because I had an accountant, was that, okay, I'm paying this person $5,000 a month. I have to make that money back. So how am I going to do that? Right. And yes, it's giving you consistent content, but then what do you do with the podcast, right? So now you can go do a blog on it. You can put it on social media. Your guests can go share it with their audience. So it's bringing overall exposure to your industry, right, and being an educator and a thought leader, which is awesome. So for the first 2 years, we never did sponsors. We didn't do any ads. We didn't ask for anything from our audience. Right. We just gave good, solid, valuable information. But
Love
when you
it.
don't, yeah, but
Love it.
But you've got to ask your audience how they want to be involved. And that's a big mistake that I made for 2 years. I never asked anything of anybody. I didn't ask them anything. I was just talking at them, not with them. And that's something that I had to really take a step back and learn, that when you involve your audience and you want them to ask questions and you actually care what their thoughts and their feelings and how you can help them through situations, the tables shift a little bit. And so really involving your audience without even trying, eventually, like having a podcast and being consistent with it, it will bring you business because you're positioning yourself as an expert, in your industry.
Well, I'm going to go back to the idea of being consistent and having a vision of your own business and having an idea of like what you want it to be. And actually, I just kind of lost my thought. So the original thought was you had originally said, you've got to put on a second skin. You got to build up a thick skin to listen to the responses that you're getting from people. And that is one thing that was really hard for me to do. And I never shared some of this stuff with Marcy or Brooke, because I didn't want to upset anybody. But, there were comments in the beginning that weren't so great, right? Because there's always going to be haters. Trolls. And there's always a troll, but you have to take a moment and go, okay, is there any truth to what they are saying? Mm-hmm. And how do I change what we're doing so it shifts a little bit? And so again, not talking at people, talking with people. Yeah. And that's a hard place. I mean, because, being a podcaster, most people would assume that you're in it for, self, celebration. Mm-hmm. And that's a fine line to walk. It's a really fine line to walk.
But the comments and here's the thing, the bigger you get and the more lives you're touching and the more people you're reaching, like you said earlier, you're not for everybody. But you're gonna get the attention of some people that have a completely different mindset, and they're gonna tell you what they think. But that's why I say take the defense out of it. Oh, Brooke's back.
Yeah, she's back.
It's like, don't be defensive. And it is hard. It is really hard to choke up. But instead of being a reactor, reframing and taking a step back and talking about it as a team, like, okay, we got these comments, like just have a healthy conversation. And that is one thing that is not great about social media. People hide behind their screens and they don't talk about it.
Lots of keyboard warriors, lots of opinions.
Yeah. And it's like
literally nothing about what you do.
Everyone's entitled to their opinion, but even some of the hatred and the trolls, I don't ignore that stuff and I don't delete it. We always respond. And I would say something to the effect of, I'm sorry that you're going through something, and I hear you, like that you see it that way, and we are all entitled to our own opinion. I'll pray for you, but
good for you.
But
that is a read.
I mean, apparently
and that's a Southern thing too.
Yeah, that's a very Southern thing.
99% of the time when you have a troll with a nasty comment, that's something that's a self-reflection of your inner being. It has nothing to do with you at all.
Exactly, 100%. But you do. And then what do you do if they want to get into a war of words with you? Like, that happens a lot when these.
I don't play war games. I don't put energy into that. Like the energy, I'll respond back and say, obviously, I said something that that resonated with you because you listened to the entire video and the podcast. And by the way, thank you for listening. And hopefully, that information can help you in the future.
The longer you watch, you're paying me, so keep going.
Yeah. But it's just like the whole thing is like it's just a reflection. And if someone's coming at you, and again, this goes back to me working in the mental hospital, you can look at a person who seems so perfectly put together. They're beautiful on the outside. They seem so perfect. They have plenty of money. Like, what the hell could be wrong with you, right? But you never know what's going on with someone behind the scenes. And a lot of people hide it all. Now, we have gotten, our society and culture has gotten to a way better place now where we are talking about mental health and we are talking about accepting things that just shit's not right. And if you see something, say something. Right. And, I don't like to get into religion or politics when people say like, what religion are you? I'm like, whatever my client is that weekend. Like, I respect all religions.
Right. 100%. I'm right there.
It doesn't matter. Yeah. That's not important. The important part is if we respect each other and we refrain from each other. And it's all in how you communicate and you say it. And yes, like the trolls are going to come and fight back. But usually if you don't continue to engage in the negativity, they'll stop. We've blocked a few people. It is what it is. But the bigger you
piss
get,
them off more than anything.
Yeah, 100%. Oh,
the bigger you get, you're gonna have those kind of people.
Well, and I think that's one of the things that when we were talking about, doing this show about, producing a podcast, producing, a video cast or, a video blog of some sort, be prepared that it's not all roses out there. There are thorns that come with that flower. And, when you put yourself out, when you put yourself out there, you're going to get some people that don't respond great to you, and you have to be okay with that. And you have to say, okay, well, I'm not for everybody. That's all right. I don't need to be friendly with everybody. I just need to make sure that I'm friends with my clients until they get married. Yep. Then afterwards, then we can put the wall down. But no, I'm actually, what's sad is, not sad. Actually, I'm actually friends with most of our clients, our previous clients, but it's really hard to separate that friendship up until their wedding. Cause you do get really chummy with people, and especially with a podcast like this and like yours. I mean, people feel like they know you. Right? After a while, don't they go, well, I know Angela. I see her every week, you know? And then
that's who I'm going to be when I grow up. Thanks,
me too. That's who I'm going to be when I grow up.
I don't know if I can pull off the platinum blonde, but
that's all highlights. Just throw some color on it.
Well, normally we do a thing about After the Veil, but oh my God, our conversation was so amazing and so wide ranging that we just kind of went right past it. So, but we're almost to our hour. And so, Angela, I just wanted to say thank you. I mean, it's been an awesome conversation. I mean, it kind of went everywhere. So, listen,
thank you for having me. So much
I know, right?
Here's my surprise face.
Right. But before we go, is there any passion project or something that you are currently working on that you would like to talk about or put out into the world? That's something, maybe it's not even published yet.
Oh gosh. Well, I mean, right now, like this month, in terms of like passion and like giving back and helping, my brother founded Operation Rose, which is a nonprofit that is to really help educate the hospitality community about sex trafficking and human trafficking. And so there's a lot of that goes on. That my brother has been an undercover agent and now has a PI, an undercover private investigations company. But I didn't realize in hospitality how close we are to it. that there's a lot of this going on, and it's a $1 billion industry. It's a really sick industry, but in terms of hospitality, like that's something that he formed, and I'm on the board of that and helping them with like their marketing and their events, and the whole thing around it is to really help educate the hospitality community to if you see something, say something. If you see something, having an ally that you can go to privately and say like, hey, I think I saw something, and really help putting a stop to this industry of human trafficking. So it's operationrose.org, and I'm so proud of him, and just really for our family to put the best foot forward. Our dad was in law enforcement as well, and I think that he would be proud that, you know, my brother followed in his footsteps, and then I'm part of that as well. To, again, it's like coming from hospitality, we're so busy and focused on like our event that's happening sometimes like at a hotel, and usually it's not happening at resorts. It's more hotels and sometimes motels, which most of us are not in, but it's just being aware of those things and like, how can we help have a better society? So that's our passion project right now.
And it's www.operationrose.com or .org?
.org.
.org. Thank you. Operationrose.org. And that is one of the things. I mean, as event professionals, we are in multiple venues, and we're on the back, and it's like we're waiters, honestly. A lot of people don't realize that we're in the room, and they're saying stuff and doing stuff that they forget that we're there, because we kind of blend into the background. So who better to report it, to see it, to make sure it gets stopped, as you know, ASAP. So operationrose.org. Angela, thank you so much. This was awesome. I had such a good time. I hope you had a good time as well.
Of course. Thank you, Keith, for having me. And Marcy, it was awesome seeing you, and Brooke, you too. And I'm going to thank Victoria for hooking us up.
I know. I love Victoria. And by the way, are you going to be at the NACE conference in Vegas?
So I will be in Vegas, and I'll be in Miami for Cater Source and TSC next week.
Wow. Awesome.
If you see something, say something.
So we will see you there.
Yes, we are going to definitely see you at Cater Source. Well, Angela, thank you again for being part of Behind the Veil. I thank you so much. We'll be back next Tuesday at 2:00 with Jeffrey Shaw. So that's going to be an interesting conversation. Little program note, I will be out of town, so we'll see if I'm able to connect, because I'll be in the middle of the Atlantic Ocean somewhere, so we'll see how that works. But the show will still continue every Tuesday at 2. And for the moment, everybody say goodbye.
Bye.
Goodbye.
Bye.